What's up, everybody? I'm TJ.
And I'm Kelsey, and we are
the Nashville Wine Duo.
It's Monday.
Monday.
We are here with
This is a special podcast
yes,
for
very
us.
special. We're here with a longtime friend that we met almost 2 years ago through social media on Instagram, Davis, who is the Nashville Somm.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd done I think we did like a Zoom call with you. Like
During the pandemic.
Yeah, we sure did.
Zoom wine tasting.
Yes.
We were just trying to make things happen at the time, weren't we?
We met in the shady parking lot and did a wine swap. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. We met at the 100 Oaks movie theater parking lot, and I think the movie theater was closed down at that point,
Yeah, it
too.
wasn't operating at the time.
So we met and exchanged wine at the parking lot.
It won't be the last time you do a shady wine swap with somebody, I'm
That
sure.
was really funny, though. It felt like we were doing a drug deal or something with this wine. Anyway, we're so happy to be doing this with you today. I guess I first just want you to kind of just tell folks about yourself, like how you got started in wine and what you do here in Nashville. Yeah.
Those are all great questions. So I always had a restaurant job since I was 22 years old. I was pursuing different career paths in New York and Los Angeles, and I always had a job at a restaurant. I realized pretty quickly that the more I knew about wine, the more money I could make.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like any product. When you're trying to sell something, the more you know. So I started learning more about wine and found out, oh, hey, this is good. I like this. And when you have an interest, you just dive into things.
Yeah.
So working through restaurants, I really kind of enveloped myself, and when I moved to Los Angeles, I got a job at a restaurant that had a 1,600 bottle wine list.
Oh my gosh.
Insane. It was a really small place, and I got to learn a ton by tasting wines all of the time, trying to understand what different things were on the list. And this list is insane. It was recognized by Wine Spectator as one of the top in the world, had a grand designation, which was one of 70 at the time or something like that. And I got to try so many bottles from that list that I would never be able to afford. I would sell bottles of wine every night that cost more than the car I was driving, right? It was crazy.
Yeah.
So that was a great way to learn, because as you know, there's no better way to learn about wine than to drink it.
Totally.
So as I was drinking with people, I was selling and recommending things and pairing things, which is an art amongst itself. And when you just elevate that experience, it helps and it drives you to do more. So then it's a boy meets girl story. I couldn't keep working the way I was and have a relationship. So my now wife, Bonnie, and I ended up in Nashville through the Teach for America program.
Oh, cool.
Which, if anybody has ever done that, is a pretty intense experience where you agree to a very short, intensive training program, and then you also agree to teach in a low-income school for a minimum of 2 years, and you don't get to choose where you are placed. And so I was placed in Nashville, and that's how we ended up here, and I'm so thankful, because we could have ended up in a lot of crazy areas of the country, and it's been fantastic. I taught special education for 3 years in Metro Public Schools, which was amazing and terrible and all of those things that you can think would be. But I'm really thankful because I still have communication with a lot of the kids that I taught,
cool.
which is awesome. Early on through that area, I knew that I couldn't sustain teaching, and I didn't want to be that teacher who just goes through the motion, because you only have these kids have 1 year, and it's important. So I started to figure out what is my next step, and I started our company, which is called Wines Together. We do in-home wine education parties, which has now kind of steamrolled into corporate events. We do wine consultation for sellers and people around Nashville, and we've been super lucky to be accepted into the wine community here pretty early on. We started Wines Together in 2016, and had a whole bunch of copycat companies that popped up that all died during COVID. They didn't make it. So we're super happy to be here. And I love sharing wine with people and sharing the knowledge that I have with people, but also I learn so much from other people when drinking, because as we were talking about earlier, you can never know everything about wine. It's too expansive. So if you go into it with that open mind, just like anything, you can really have a good time with wine and different people and just sharing those experiences. So Wines Together has been amazing, and it's allowed us different avenues to meet people. I originally started it because I thought, hey, I can get free wine this way, right? People will sponsor me, and that's happened, which has been great, but it's really more fun just drinking with people and watching people understand, hey, maybe I didn't really like this. People tell me I'm supposed to drink this, but this is not really what I like. And then going through the process of understanding what it is that they do like. So it's been great.
What wine do you feel like you were saying that people, maybe I don't like this. What wine do you feel like is pushed on people a lot? Like what particular variety?
Well, I think in the U.S. we are always pushed towards big-bodied, dark-colored red wines.
Like Syrah?
Yep, Syrahs. I think, the most prominent wine in the country right now is probably Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Everyone is supposed to drink Cabernet Sauvignon, and I love cabs. I think they're great, but all wines have different places. Right? I don't want to drink a big, rich Cabernet Sauvignon when it's 90 degrees out, like it is today. Right? It's just not enjoyable to me. And I think there's a time and place for all of them, and different styles. I personally don't like to talk bad about any wines or winemakers because it's hard. Right? It's a process. And just because I don't enjoy it doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy it. But with wine being so expansive, I feel like if you really do like wine, and if you say, it's your favorite drink, then you should be exploring. If you're a light-bodied red fan, there's a ton of different grapes out there that you can try besides Pinot Noir. So why not go out and try them? And hey, you can always go to your wine professional and say, hey, give me some recommendations. But you can also go to Google and say, Google, I like Pinot Noir. What's like Pinot Noir, right? We live in that age that's amazing. So I just try and keep it easy and fun for people when we're talking about wine education. And, wine's meant to be shared with people. So
I have noticed, though, and it's been interesting, a lot of people know we work at Trader Joe's, but just like talking to people about wine, they're like people that are just wanting to find something they want to drink, for the night, whatever. I feel like people tend to be really scared to try new wines. And I'm like, I wonder where that kind of comes from. Like, I don't know I think maybe they're worried I couldn't get a return. I'll have this whole bottle that I invested money in, and maybe, I'll hate it. It's nice because Trader Joe's, you can return even wine. We tell people that all the time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's like you try as much as you want because you can return it if you don't like it. But do you think that that's part of the reason why, or what else do you?
Sure, I think people are afraid to spend money on things that they are unsure of in every aspect of life. Right? Yeah. If you're going grocery shopping, you tend to buy the same things over and over again. You don't buy the different things every single week. The great thing about Trader Joe's is that the wines are not crazy expensive. So if you spend, $15 on something that you're unsure of, it's $15 at the end of the day. It's not the worst. I didn't know you could return them. That's pretty awesome. I have to start taking advantage of that.
Yeah. You should.
But when you go into a wine store, it's confusing because in New World countries, U.S. wines, they put the grapes on there, so you kind of know what you're getting. But when you're talking about the European countries, it's just an area or a region that's on the bottle, and if you don't know what that grape is, you don't necessarily know what the style is going to be. It can be confusing, and traveling to Italy and France and talking to people there, they don't know what's in those regions outside of where they live either.
Interesting.
It's confusing all over the world. It's not just confusing to us. So, but that's why it's a little fun to study all of those things and kind of have an idea. So when you walk in, you can say, "Oh yeah, I've seen that bottle before, and I know that that's this style. So let's try it."
Yeah. Well, I definitely have more questions, and I'm sure you do too. But we'll dive into this wine that you brought us today to try, and we're so excited. You love French wines, right?
I love wine.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Okay.
We do drink a lot of French and Italian and Spanish, some of the European wines, but again, we don't discriminate.
Yeah.
I just find that a lot of French and Spanish and lesser known Italian regions, the wines are less expensive and higher quality. And that's what I like, because we're not drinking crazy expensive bottles of wine every night, right?
Yeah.
And we drink a lot of wine.
Yeah.
So, we have a little one at home and you need the wine at the end of the night to kind of chill out. So we do drink a lot of wine from sort of lesser known French regions and lesser known Italian regions because we know we like them and they're not particularly expensive. What I brought today is a wine from the Beaujolais region in France, which is just below Burgundy, sort of in the center of France. And it's what they call a Cru Beaujolais. So all of Beaujolais is the large area. And then when you get a little more specific, you have Beaujolais Village, or it says Beaujolais Villages on the label.
And that's Cru, C-R-U.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Beaujolais Villages is a little higher quality, smaller region. And then all the way in the north, you have 10 what they call Cru villages. With names like Juliana, which we're going to drink today, Moulin Avant, Fleury, there's a whole bunch of them. And they are really great, high quality wines that you can get kind of in that $20 range.
Oh, wow.
If you are a Pinot Noir fan, this is a great kind of lateral movement from there. It's made from Gamay Noir. Their soil tends to be a little rocky, and in the Cru areas, each little area has sort of different qualities. Juliana tends to be juicy but has some decent tannins to it. Beaujolais is also famous for carbonic maceration. I know y'all were talking about that recently, which is basically the process where wine ferments from the inside out, whole cluster, and it tends to be juicier and softer tannins. When you're in the Cru area, those wines do age for a little bit longer, so they're a little richer. But on the light to medium bodied side, beautiful red fruits. These are rockin' Thanksgiving wines all the time because that red cherry cranberry tends to be the fruit from there. But y'all taste it and tell me what you think. Hey,
well, first off, cheers.
Yes,
get a little cheers areas in here. And I'll let you kind of give me your opinion as you go through. Also, I want to tell you that Juliana, when we were in France, it is like the Shire. It is so beautiful there. It's like green rolling hills, and the people are so nice, and the villages are really small. And one of my favorite memories of being in France is we grabbed a bottle of Juliana when we were there, and we just sat on this random stone wall outside a vineyard and drank a bottle of wine and watched the sun go down, and literally saw no one, and it was just perfect. So it has a special place in my heart.
That's like a moment you won't forget.
Ever.
Nah, that's awesome.
It was incredible.
So. That's the thing I love about wine too, is you remember like certain things.
Yeah,
Places
like the bottle
where
can take you back to when
the bottle takes you back. Yeah,
It totally does.
And it makes it taste even better too.
So
I was on this hill sipping wine.
Yeah, it was great.
Nobody was around.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I can see like we were talking to like about like this would be a wine that I think you could still drink when it's like hot out too, because it's like light and like nice. And
I love light-bodied wines in the summer, chilled.
Yes.
Take a Beaujolais, stick it in the fridge for 20 minutes and have a little chill on it. That's one of the tips that I tell people in our tastings is, first of all, we drink our wines too warm in general. And when wines are a little too warm, they tend to be a little hotter or a little more alcoholic. And if you chill them a little bit, it does tend to tamper down that alcohol.
Yeah.
So if you ever have a wine you pop and it's super, burny on your chest, cool it down for a little bit and then taste it again. You might find that alcohol is lower than it was before. But in the summer when it's hot, a great light body red. I still crave the reds, and we drink whites and bubbles and skin contact white and all of that. But I do still like the tannins that come from the red wine, and even though this is a lighter tannined wine, I like to drink them all summer.
Yeah.
So
this is nice too, because I like the back end on it.
The tart.
The tartness.
It's like a pomegranate.
Pomegranate,
or,
cherry.
I was also thinking, yeah, like it's tart. It's like it's kind of like a cherry.
Yeah, there's just that tartness on the back that kicks in, kind of just hangs out on my tongue. I like it.
Yeah, I like that too.
And as you go through Beaujolais, you can get really inexpensive bottles of just the Beaujolais area. And they're still delicious.
Yeah.
They're lighter bodied and they tend to be a little bit more fruit forward in style. The Cru Beaujolais tend to be a little more reserved and fine, but they're still fun to drink.
Yeah, totally.
I think y'all have the De Boeuf Beaujolais at Trader Joe's, which is a great entry into Beaujolais because it's going to give you a pretty good idea of what it tastes like. A lot of times the Beaujolais from the carbonic maceration gets a little bubblegummy, so it has a little bit of that sweetness to it at the finish. It's still a dry wine, but it has those flavors. And I really enjoy this style of wine personally.
Yeah.
I really enjoy
And
it.
I love Burgundies. I love those French Pinot Noirs, but a good Burgundy is like $50.
Yeah.
And if I'm drinking any bottle that's more than like $30 or $40, it better be exceptional. That's always been my mantra, I guess, with wine.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid to spend money on wine, but if you're going to spend some money, it better be exceptional. If you buy an expensive bottle and it's just average, I'm extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
But if I buy a $20 bottle of wine, $15 bottle of wine, and it's just average, that's probably okay with me.
Yeah.
But you can always find exceptional wines like this, which is like $25, and they're wonderful. I love them. So
yeah.
Where can people find this in town?
This came from Midtown Cork Dorks. This Juliana is Domaine Chignard, and it is imported by Kermit Lynch, which is what we were talking about. I really enjoy the wines of Kermit Lynch. I think we have a similar palate. The Kermit Lynch company has been importing forever, and he wrote an amazing book. But again, when we were talking about earlier with importers, is if you start to buy different wines and you see the same importer name on the label all the time, you're probably going to like the breadth of their wines because you have similar palates.
Right.
If you start buying things and you find you don't like those wines, then maybe not buy that importer anymore because you might have a different palate than that particular importer. So,
good advice.
Yeah, buying wine is fun.
Yeah.
And it should be fun. You
should
go out
be
and
fun,
try
right?
things. So
do you get excited about Beaujolais Nouveau when it comes out?
no. It's just, to be honest, it's just not a style I like.
Yeah.
So the Nouveau is just, it's very fruit forward and a little on the sweet side. And, if that's a style people like, cool. Like I said, I don't care what you drink. It doesn't matter to me. You should drink whatever you like. If I've had people give me the Beaujolais Nouveau, and I'll just let it sit for a couple of years, which is totally anti what that is. You're supposed to drink it young and fresh and right away, but I'll let it sit and age, and then I find it's more like a Beaujolais because it's made the same style. But, it's just not a style that I enjoy.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking, like, recently, and this is kind of weird. So I totally see what you're saying about, like, a lot of, like, fruit-forward, big wines in America, and I feel like actually a lot of the ones that we've been buying at Trader Joe's recently, they are that. They're like these bigger, fruit, a lot of things going on, and I feel like my palate is starting to shift more towards this kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's just been interesting for me. Like lately, I try some of that stuff, and I'm just like, man, it's just so much of that inky, deep, dark fruit,
concentrated.
And it just feels very like kind of like heavy to me, or almost like just too fruity. And it didn't used to be that, and now it's becoming that. And I really am liking more of the just drier, more tart. I don't know. It's just I never used to feel like that, and maybe it's just over time.
Just recently,
I've been telling you, I'm like, I don't want to do the Syrah. I don't know.
I think that there's a natural progression. The more wine you drink, you start to crave drier, more acidic style. I don't know why. I think we all, we're kids. We drink sweet stuff, right? We're, rocking out those super sweet Rieslings and things of that nature. And then you realize, oh, dry Riesling is amazing. I didn't know they made that. That's so good. I love it. Yeah. But there's a natural progression. And I think in this country, we have an idea that really dark wine is higher quality. And that's from studies. You know, if you look at it and it's really dark, then it must be really high quality. But something like a Beaujolais from Gamay Noir, it's a thin-skinned grape. It doesn't have a dark color to it. So people will look at it and say, oh, maybe it's not so good because it's light and, you know, I can see through it. But that's not always the case.
That's so interesting. You're so right. I think people they judge stuff off color like so much. Like everyone thinks rosé is sweet.
Yeah.
So many people think rosé is sweet.
For sure.
Because it's pink. And I'm like, no.
But you've all had that blush box of wine at some point, right? And that's what you think.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of wines like that as well, where people have a premonition about what it is without really fully investigating it, which is, you know, why we started Wines Together. It's about showing people, hey, these are all of these grapes, and maybe you like them, and maybe you don't, and that's great either way. But with wine being so expansive, there's no reason to keep drinking the same exact thing over and over when you could keep trying different things, and you might find, oh, hey, I thought I really liked that, but I like this style so much more. And I think your palate changes by the season, right? We're getting into hopefully some colder weather here. I'll probably start inching towards a little richer bodied wines, some more tannic style when it's a little colder out. But there's just a place for all of it somewhere.
Yeah. So how did you, I know you do the segment on
Today
TV,
in Nashville.
On Today. So how did that come about?
Great question. So I had, actually, my wife Bonnie had a friend who used to produce the news for Channel 4. And they were in a book club together, and she said, oh, you know, we have this Today in Nashville show. Davis should be on it. And so she introduced me to the producer, and they're like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And luckily it went really well, and we just formed a great relationship with Carol, the host, and she basically told me, hey, come whenever you want. Why don't we book once a month?
That's great.
And I thought, great. So we're on once a month, and I try and do some interesting segments that go with the time, something that's going on with the season. The last one we did was about Whiskey Fest, which we were talking about. Nashville Whiskey Fest is coming up, so we did tastings of 3 whiskeys. One thing that a lot of people don't know about when you're studying for your sommelier exam, it's not just wine. You also have to know beer and spirits for that exam. The majority is wine, but there's also spirits and beer questions in there as well. And when you're doing, if you do the Court of Master Sommeliers track, there is a service portion where they ask you questions about things like that, and you have to have an idea. But if you've worked in the service area, you probably know the majority of it. So it's good to know different styles of all different beverages, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, people should definitely check you out on TV.
Oh, yeah, please. Once a month, we're on.
Yeah.
And, you know, to plug Today in Nashville, they just started to be an hour again. After, you know, COVID changed their show, and they moved to 2 o'clock, and they have live bands and local chefs, and it's just a cool Nashville show to watch to keep abreast of what's going on in Nashville.
Yeah.
I don't know any other show that's specific like that here.
I did want to ask you, last time we had talked to you, talked about wanting to go to England and try more of the wines there. I didn't know if you ever got around to doing that, or if you still plan to, and what were the wines that you were excited to try there?
I would love to go there, and I haven't had a chance, but English sparkling wine is the jam right now. It is difficult to find here, but if you can, with climate change, all of these wine regions are getting warmer, and English sparkling was always something that happened sort of on the East Coast, but it was never, the grapes were never developed enough to make really high quality sparkling, and it's made in the same traditional method as champagne. But now it's gotten 5 to 7 degrees warmer in those areas, so there's a little bit of a longer growing region that happens, and the grapes are fully formed and they're making these gorgeous sparklings that are rivaling champagne. And I'll tell you, they're not happy about it up in France.
Right.
But people are taking notice of these gorgeous English sparklers that are $25 and $30 a bottle instead of 50 or 60 like they are in champagne. So I think high quality wine that's made available to people at a lower price is always exciting.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
I had a really good bottle of English sparkling with my friend Eric last week, and it just reminds you that there's so much wine out there to try.
Yeah.
That, you know, like everything, we buy the same thing over and over, but if you can try other things, if you just kind of branch out, you never know what you're going to find. It's exciting.
Well, that's cool. And you haven't been yet, or you have been?
I have not been.
Okay.
But, having the little one at home restricts the travel a little bit. She's not quite ready for the wine tasting, although she does enjoy drinking some wine, which is crazy. Yes, I did say my 19-month-old daughter likes to drink wine. I said that out loud. It's okay.
No, actually, I know other people that say in other countries that's actually pretty normal. Like, I even watched some documentary with, like, winemakers, and he was giving the kids wine.
Oh, yeah, they were sitting down for dinner, and they were trying to do
yeah, they were little, and he was trying to teach them how to taste. Yeah.
It is our goal to just make it a normal part of life and not a big deal. Because I think we separate it here, so it becomes a big deal.
Right.
But if it's a normal part of life, then maybe it's not quite the change as it might be.
I've heard it's like that more in European countries in general. Like, they just make
there's no drinking age, so.
Yeah, well, and they just make other things, like more just like, they're just like taboos, things that we think are taboo here are not.
Yeah, and I think the crazy thing when you're especially in Italy, they don't open a bottle of wine unless they're having a meal. So it's not, here it's Monday afternoon, we're talking about wine, we're drinking some bottles, right? But everything is meant to be paired with food there. So they'll have a cocktail or a spritz, but they're not popping bottles just to have a glass or two because it's been a hard Wednesday night. But that's what we do here, and it's a different style. And when you experience those different cultures with food and alcohol pairings, it changes the way you think about it a little bit. It doesn't stop me from popping a bottle every night because we enjoy our wine for sure, but it's fun to see how it works in other countries. And it was really interesting when we were in Bordeaux. We had this amazing guide I learned so much from him, and he had grown up in the Bordeaux region. His dad worked at a vineyard and was a winemaker. So when he was a kid, he also worked there. But he had never had a bottle of Burgundy, which is 3 hours away.
Wow.
Because when you're in Bordeaux, they only sell Bordeaux. You only drink Bordeaux. That's all that's there. They support local, which is really cool. Here, we can go to a wine store and there's thousands of different choices from all over the world. So it's a little different style.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
It's amazing you could be 3 hours away from like a region that is known for like incredible wine and be like, no, I've only tried this kind of wine.
Exactly. And when we went to Beaujolais, I said, hey, we were just in Bordeaux and we had these great wines, and he said, I've never had a Bordeaux before. Mind blown.
That's crazy. Crazy to think of. Wow.
You get the next question.
I get the next question?
Unless you want me to.
No,
I keep having more questions. I did want to know, Trader Joe's, what were some of, and I'm going to get it on film too, but what were some of your favorite wines from Trader Joe's?
That's a great question.
I know one of them.
So I think that Emma Reichert Riesling is the best bottle at Trader Joe's, and it's $5.99?
Yeah,
it's a dry Riesling, so it is crisp and limey and all of those lovely things that Rieslings should be. Very simple, clean, white. I'm going to be honest, I had trouble finding really good reds that I really could get behind. But there was some good sparklings, like that Louis, French Bubbles. Those were fantastic. I love those. And the Fleur Rosé was so good. I love that bottle too. So I think there's always good bottles that you can find just about anywhere. So you just can't be afraid to give it a try. We've got a visitor.
And you said this wine, you can get it at Cork Dorks?
Yep, this one came from Cork Dorks. I think Juliana you can get in a lot of different places around town. It's one of the more accessible cru Beaujolais that you can find. But they're all fun to try. I think they're delicious.
How much does this one usually go for?
It's like $25.
That's a great deal.
Yeah,
and what you were saying too, the Juliana, that's the region.
Yep. So Juliana would be the area within the Beaujolais region.
Yeah.
So all the way in the north, there's all those cru. And one of the cool things about Beaujolais is the centerpiece at the top of Beaujolais is Moulin à Vent, which is a big windmill. You can just walk right up to the windmill. It's in the middle of a vineyard. And that's one of the cru areas. It's just a different world.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Sounds like it.
Man, you've been in a lot of really cool places.
I've been so lucky. So lucky and fortunate to be able to travel and to be able to drink wine with people in different areas and talk about wine with all these different people. It's been amazing. So.
Well, one of the things about you that I just have to say is you just seem like such a humble, kind person, and
thank you.
We both have thought
just
that.
Like y'all.
Since we met you, we're just like, because like you say, in every industry you meet some people and you're like, oh, okay, but you know a lot about wine, and I think wine can have this pretentiousness to it sometimes, and
Agreed.
People feel intimidated by people that know a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just come across very just so approachable, and like anybody could come to you with a question and not feel stupid.
For asking the question.
No, they could just feel like you would be like, yeah, I feel so comfortable talking to you, and if I don't say something right or whatever, I would never feel weird about that. I don't know.
Well, and again, the beauty of wine, especially for our journey, has been talking to winemakers and people like yourself, that we learn so much from just talking to wine lovers. It's like you said earlier, you're never going to know everything about wine. And so the different people that we speak to, and just even over a glass or a bottle of wine, it's like we learn from that.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Just sitting and sharing a bottle of wine and talking about wine or anything.
Yeah.
I just learn so much from people. And if you ever have that closed-minded mentality where you think you know everything, it stops you from learning new things.
Yeah.
Right? So
I think some people just want to feel really fancy.
Wine is so fancy, right?
To be honest, I think that there's this glamorous side of it, or this fancy feeling of and
sure. And I think a lot of that has to do with the cost.
Yeah.
Wine can be very expensive.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't have to be. That's the thing. Look, there's nothing wrong with a boxed wine. There's nothing wrong with a screw cap on top of wine. There's quality wines being made everywhere in every style. There's also not quality wines being made in every style, right? But that's why we drink them and try them, and we figure out, hey, I like this, I don't like that. It's not for me to comment on what people like. But I do like to try and steer people and say, oh, why don't you try this? You might really like this. That's the fun of it.
That's why I think it's good that someone like you is in wine education, just because I think it's such a good fit. And
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, people are just so funny. Even this morning, I'm just going to put this in there because it was just so ridiculous. I posted about ravioli last night. I said raviolis. This wine person, which we've unfollowed them because they keep commenting really weird things to us. And they said, it's raviolo.
What?
Yeah, you're saying it wrong. And I'm like, who cares? Yeah, and then when our dog passed away, we put the wrong year of the date that he passed away because we're sad, and we posted. And they said, did you mean 2022? And I'm like, yeah, we did. I don't know. People just, I don't understand. And the other day, even at Trader Joe's, someone told me that a man got in a fight with somebody over holes in sourdough bread. He got really upset. He said, I want to return this bread, and I've written corporate because there's holes in this sourdough bread. And she was like, well, there's, that's how, that happens when you make the bread. And she said he pulled out the bread.
There's air that gets in there.
Yeah, pulled out the bread out of it. This is when he was going to purchase. Held it up and was like, look at these holes. And she was like, well, now I have to get rid of, throw that away.
Put your fingers all over that.
Anyway,
don't waste the bread. That's amazing. I love bread.
Yeah, going off on a tangent.
It's like that one time I mentioned Paso Robles region, and the person was from California, and they said, "Don't you mean Paso Roble?" And I was like, "Okay."
Wait, I thought it was Robles though. Is it
Depends
Roble?
on who you talk to. I don't know.
If you're fancy,
I wasn't going to fight about it.
I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh!
You can go there and get some good Zinfandel though. That's good. I just, from what you said, I never, in any part of life, want to make someone feel bad about something.
Yeah.
There's ways to approach things that are really kind to help people, right? And if you feel strongly it's Paso Roble, there's definitely a way to say, hey, guys, I love what you're doing. It's so fun. By the way, I'm from this area. This is how we pronounce it there. If you want to take that into consideration, cool, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being snippy about it.
Well, I think a lot of your attitude from now learning more about your background could probably also come from you working in special education, the fact that you took that job and worked in that community. That takes, a special kind of person to be able to do that. So
kids are amazing.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Everyone has their challenges, and I just have a heart for that community.
Love that.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So
one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How'd you come up with the Nashville Somm name?
That's interesting. I didn't come up with it.
You didn't?
No. Because that sounds very conceited if I did, right? I was like, hey! No, I was hanging out with some of our really good friends. My friend Michael August, who is an awesome songwriter here in town, and his wife Sue, and we were having lunch and talking about building this business, and he's like, "Oh man, you're like the Nashville Somm." Oh, hey, that sounds good. Yeah. Let me put that on my Instagram, and it just kind of stuck.
That's cool.
Nice.
So
I love it.
And look, there's an amazing wine community here in Nashville that probably was not here 10 years ago, and there are fantastic, talented sommeliers that work every day in restaurants and wine shops, and just wine professionals in general that are around town, which I think if you enjoy wine, ask questions. If you go to a store and people aren't nice, go to another store. We've got lots of great wine shops here. If you go to a restaurant, same deal, right? If people aren't cool to you, go to a different restaurant.
Right.
There's no reason that you have to settle. Coming from a service background, I always tried to be accommodating. Even when people are difficult, it's still service at the end of the day. And some people are easier to serve than others. Right.
Well put.
You just... Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, both of you.
Yeah, like the bread hole guy.
Yeah, the bread hole guy. Bread hole, that could be a swear word. I like it. Such a bread hole.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us
awesome.
today.
Thank you for having me.
So fun. Y'all check out Nashville Somm.
Check out Nashville
Wines
Somm.
Together for any of your wine education needs.
Yes.
I'd love to come drink with you.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you're on channel
4.
Yes.
Today in Nashville once a month. Come and check us out.
Yes.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay. You
Here's
don't
to
have any
wine.
You need more wine.
Yes, please.